unfortunately at the cost of my children, at cost of many people in my life because of my bad choices. But I look back, and yesterday I was looking back and I was saying, oh God, where you brought me from. From the woman who used to shoplift to feed her kids and put her pack of meat in her son's backpack because she couldn't afford it. So in my mind, the enemy had lied to me, and I accepted the lie that I was unworthy, that I could damage the next generation. You know what I mean? Right. And now for today, I will fight for the right to teach women and men, don't do this to your kids. If you can't provide, if you can't do it, be woman and man enough to stand up straight and say, here, have my child help me. Help me get my mess straight so I can do it. It took me coming out of jail and being in therapy and being broken and waking up in a puddle of vomit and being drunk, and to every day rise up and be like, God, is this what I want? You know, and God gave me a woman like you. God gave me a probation officer named Phyllis Williams. I wish I could contact her. I think she retired. This lady did not lie to me, Miss Phyllis, like you don't. She said, Cinderella, this is what you're going to be, because you're going to be a statistic in the newspaper.
Wow.
She said, you are. We're going to hear about the girl who died dead somewhere, and her children were left to one of her abusers. Then she said, then I had a therapist, Lilian Pinheiro. She said to me, Cinderella, you're amazing. God's going to use you one day if you let him. I said, she said, when you get tired of playing in the mud and making mud piles, I remember. She said, let me know and I'll help you rise. You know, God provided me strong women. A woman named Yvette Melendez. She's on my Facebook, my friend. She was the secretary at the therapist's office. She did what many women should do today. She reached over a counter, and with one finger, she used to go, hey, God loves you. Just something so simple saved my life. You know what I mean? She was not afraid. And, you know, and Yvette, she'll hear this. Yvette is not a very touchy, loving person. That's her personality. Yeah. But she touched my life in a way that nobody else did. She reached out when I felt that I was a waste, where I was nothing. I was untouchable. And she would say to me, I love you. And just that simple, every day. And I would tell her, why you touch me? Yeah. And she would go, God loves you. And one day, I picked up the phone and called her, and I went to her church. So I believe that women out there that have come out of the valley, that you're in the process of coming out of the valley, that you want to come out of the valley, don't be afraid to speak up. It is hidden shame in the shadows that keeps us there. Right. I believe in getting up and saying, you know what, I got an issue, I'm angry, or I'm sad. Can you take my kids today because I really need a moment? Let's help each other. I get really sad, and I think with it comes a lot of resentment from other women that have already achieved this, but are not willing to come right back down and pull up, like you said. Right. So I want to help create women to do that. I want to be part of this. Let's emerge with beauty. Let's stand together. If you can't get her through it and you can't get through it, let's go together and let's pull her out. All right. Yep. Intervention, spiritual, prayer, but most of all, physical. Yes. Be there, Miss Phyllis.
Also, you have to have the tough love.
I believe in that. Yeah. I am so grateful for that tough love that said to me, don't come back to my house until you're ready to clean your mess. So it's really beautiful. I thank you for this opportunity, but I am like honored and humbled because it's all about just wanting to help the next person. Yeah. You know, I had one of the overcomers at my house a couple days ago, and she came over and she spent 7 hours in my house. I'm not gonna say her name. We spent 7 hours of the most amazing fellowshipping, real. We had dinner together. Our children fellowship together. And it was the most amazing thing. And there was only one thing that I felt that I got from all of that was we can. Yeah. We can. We can show love. Yeah. We can. It doesn't matter. I stopped everything I was doing and I sat down, and can I tell you, I was so honored that God would trust me to sit with this girl when I had 727 things to do. But God said, I want you to love on her. I was like, oh my God, you trust me to love on this girl? Yeah. I could say the worst thing that'll send her back, you know.
But you know, the one thing we women need to remember is this. We've always ruled the world. We've always ruled the world. We allowed men to look like they were ruling the world. We did. We allowed them to think they were ruling the world. When in actuality, we were ruling the world. Because we control how every man feels. We control that. We can make him feel good. We can also go, not today, dude, and we can bring him back down.
I call that the atmosphere creator. That's the atmosphere creator.
But women, we need to remember, we do those things. We in the past, if we look at and I'll back away and switch. If we look at our history, just our own history of women, we'll see that the queens were always us. We were always the temple that you didn't mess with. Because once we spread our arms, it's all over. Or once we spread our arms, it all begins. So we need to remember that no matter where we are, we were it. We are it.
We are very influential.
We control things. You know, yes, people say the man is the man of the house. Okay, whatever. We didn't care about it. That was like, yeah, okay, fine. You know, but still, we need to remember all the strength of the world is in our hands. And our little hands and our big hands, whatever hands we got. I
believe that.
The strength of the world is in our hands. And once we remember that, and once we take control of that, we can change the world. If we remember last year, and I'm going to use Alabama, they had an election, and this child molester was in the running. And if the women hadn't got together and voted in strength, he would have won. But the women came together and said, not today. So women, and it was proven, women got together and go, not today. Now, some of the good old people wanted him to win. They didn't care about him being a molester. We needed him to stand. We need him to win because he's what we want. But like I said, women got together and said, not today. So in that election, not today, he lost. He didn't lose because men voted. No, he won. He lost because women got together and decided not today. And he didn't think, no one thought, or they go, yeah, right. Yeah, these women are getting together. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, they getting together. And I studied that part of that news. And people, these women, they just over there talking. Oh, yeah.
We're very influential.
There you go.
Yes,
but they didn't realize these women were talking. They made plan and they executed their plan. So Mr. Child Molester lost, had to go home and figure out really what happened. But the women show who they really are. So if we can do things like that, then we can control and change the world.
Well, I beg to differ on one thing. I think control is an illusion.
Well, we can, you know,
but I
make
do
sure
agree
things
with you
remove.
that we are influential.
Yes.
That we can change the world. I always believe in that. I believe that we have the power to change an atmosphere.
We just need to do it.
And one of the things in coming from abuse, we tend to create a terrible atmosphere when we enter a place until you get out of the valley.
Yeah.
Then
you gotta get out of the valley.
If you get out, once you're out of the valley, you can change your atmosphere.
Yeah.
I agree that women are all powerful. I do agree with the men being the head of the house, but I do know that without my partner says that without the head, without the neck, the head don't move.
Right.
The women are like, hey, baby, look that way. Baby, look that way. You know. Right. I want to thank you. One of the things that, if you allow me to, I would like to talk about my borrow my gown.
We're gonna get to that. Okay. See, we're moving in that direction. See, we're moving into that direction. But see, first we gotta.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, before people talk about your success, you have failures before your success.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't, then you don't have a real success.
You're totally right.
You had to crawl to the success. Some people say, I just leaped into it, then it's gonna fail. I'm serious. Your success is gonna fail if you didn't crawl into it. You know, you can't do the, oh yeah, I wake up in the morning, oh yeah, I'm rich now.
I don't think we would know what to do if we were rich.
Right, as overnight, yeah. Yes. You know, but if you crawl to it, then you know what success is. You know what it feels like. You know how to respect it, and you also know the pitfalls of falling because you had to crawl up there.
I agree with something. It's like when you have someone that, what you're saying, when you have someone that just kind of enters into money. Right. You know, I was hearing John Gray, right? He said something that really resonated with me. He said, you can get someone from the ghettos and give them a mansion, they turn their mansion into the ghetto.
Yeah.
If they haven't been rotated. But if you get someone from you know, finances that have been brought up to how to manage things, and you stick them in the ghettos, they turn the ghettos into a palace.
Yeah. Because they're gonna go to work to fix this.
Yes. Yeah. And so I understand that. You know. So is there something you want to ask me then?
Yes, there is something I need to ask you. Okay. While you were going back and forth toward, I'm going this way, but some of me is still over there. While you were going to that, you had to discover that you had a passion.
Yes.
In all of that, the passion that you had, that you kept quiet because you were doing other things. Because the passion you have now, you had it then, but other things overpowered your passion. And you put your passion kind of, you buried it and put it down in a little box somewhere. But you had that passion. But like I said, it wasn't awake yet because you helped it stay asleep. You drugged it to sleep.
Yes, ma'am.
You fought it to sleep. You kept it asleep. And eventually, when you began to make a change, that box opened and you allowed your passion to come through. So when did you discover the passion that you have now? She's like, wow.
Wow, no, I remember the exact turning point. That's what happens when you start writing a book. You kind of start going through your journals and be like, oh, this is when this happened.
Yeah.
And it's, again, funny because you ask questions that I'm actually right now at this moment reading stuff that I wrote to write. It was 2002. And I lived in Florida. I have an 18-year-old. She turned 18 a couple of days ago. I was pregnant for her. And because of my drug usage of the past, my body was in chaos. I wasn't pregnant while I was using. Praise God. Never used drugs with none of my kids. That's one thing that I always felt very strongly about. But when I did get pregnant, I had been doing drugs for so many years.
Right. A
lot of medication from the doctors for the brain stuff had made my body a turmoil. Mm-hmm. It was a dangerous ground. So when I got pregnant, the doctor said I should have an abortion. They said you should have an abortion. Everything in here, from tumors to cysts inside your girly parts, this baby is not going to make it.
Right. I
had just met Jesus. I still was fighting for my children. In all of that, there was one thing I kept on holding on to, and it's scripture. It's one thing, and it was that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I felt that the weapon of destruction was myself. I was my own weapon of destruction. Mm-hmm. I was my worst enemy. It was 2002 and I was homeless, living in a car, pregnant with a child after coming out of a domestic abuse relationship where her biological father beat me to a pulp between a refrigerator and a wall, and my placenta moved to the wrong place.
Oh, wow.
He beat me to a pulp, and my little daughter called the ambulance and picked me up, and I was in the hospital, and again, they wanted to terminate my pregnancy, but God kept on telling me don't. And I said, no, God said he will. And I was new to this. So, of course, people think you're crazy.
Right.
In that process of being homeless, living in a car, having a 3-year-old, they thought you were on permanent vacation. I took her from parks to trucker stops to adventures. She didn't know no difference. God was so good. I bought a Cadillac for $275. Somebody gave me a Cadillac. It was awesome. It was fantastic. So we were like touring. During that process, there was one thing that I kept on holding on to, was that there was no way that this is who I was supposed to be.
Right.
There's no way. I'm supposed to be this broken down woman. There's no way. And I would go sit in the park for hours, Miss Phyllis, and I would see the other women that were homeless, the other women struggling with their kids in these parks in downtown Miami, under the bridge. I don't know about now, but that's where they would go sit.
Right.
I would go sit there and I would buy bread and turkey with my food stamps, and something would happen. That's when I discovered that I was pregnant. My belly was crooked because there was something else inside my belly. It was a tumor, what the doctor said. And I would sit and I would give away my food. I would make these sandwiches and I would feed my little 3-year-old running around, but I would give away my food. I would hear God tell me, go give that lady a sandwich because she don't got no food stamps. So I would go over there and I would give her a sandwich. And I began buying boxes of water and boxes of juice and filling up my trunk and lined it with plastic and 2 bags of ice. And every afternoon I would go through the park and I would feed the homeless. I would sit there. They didn't know I was just as homeless as them. Because God said, if you tell them you're just as homeless, you can't help them. You just got to show them love. So I would go and I would feed the homeless. And every afternoon I would go there and I would bring bread. And I was homeless for months and months. I would go take a shower for $1.25 in a trucker stop. I would sleep in my car. And in the midst of all of that, God began to reveal to me that in your brokenness, you are somebody else's tool to help them. Let them watch you. And I would just do it. And it was like, I don't know how to explain to you. It began to birth in me as I would watch that I would feed a homeless person and I would tell her, girl, God loves you no matter what we going through. And back then I still had a potty mouth. So mind you, I would say Jesus and beep, 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 in the midst of my Jesus. But I still did it, and that's where it all began. I began to watch those little women that I would come. They would hear my car, made a sound, and they would all kind of hover. Oh, Cinderella's coming. Back then, I wasn't Cinderella. I was Barbie.
Oh,
that was my nickname because I was ashamed of being Cinderella.
Oh, wow.
And I was Barbie, and people would come and hover in the car, and I would feed the homeless, and we would hang out, and we would play cards. And then God took me a step further, and I started getting clothes from all the donations places, and I would stick them in my back seat of my car, and I would come that you couldn't even fit, and I would be like, shirts, pants, and I ended up going to a church and met people, and it became a ministry. Mm-hmm. It became helping those that were in my same situation. And in the process, I began boldly praying for people and boldly believing. And I have no idea how to explain to you that only Jesus could have done that, because I'm a 7th grade dropout, Miss Phyllis.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And God began to do something that I would grab a notebook and I would find every resource center in downtown Miami, and I would find where the agency was and what day they had the appointments, and I would go to them and ask them, what day do you feed the homeless? What day do you have clothes? And then I would take this and write it by hand, and I couldn't even afford to go and get printer paper, so I would write down 50 papers over and over the same information. And I would fold them up and joke around with the girls and make an airplane by sitting down, because I was pregnant, and I would go, here, girl. I was like, you can go downtown here, and you can go to the food bank, and you can go. And that's where it began. It birthed in downtown Miami in the midst of 150 degrees weather, homeless, pregnant, in a car with nothing else to give but the love of God. Mm-hmm. And I want you to know that it was the best experience in my life, because it showed me that we are all human. We are all struggling with something. Mm-hmm. Nobody is so perfect, you know.
Right.
You know, and let me tell you, I met a man while I was homeless in the street that his great grandfather has a statue in the middle of the town in Puerto Rico, Ponce. The guy comes from generations of everything you can want in a family, and his dysfunction was so severe that he was casted out of his own family. Yeah. We became so close. This man would sit on this bench and would tell me beautiful things about, you know, he would say, oh, you don't understand, and God will do this. And he would sit there, it smelled like urine, you know, homeless. Mm-hmm. But he had nothing but so much love coming out of him that it was hard to see anything else. Right. These people, this was the turning point. 2000, I mean, it was the turning point. By 2002, what I was doing had overseen my car. I had an apartment now, and my house, I used to get gallons and gallons and bottles of water. People would just knock on my door. I heard you feed the homeless. I heard you feed the homeless. Mm-hmm. And Ms. Phyllis, I had no name for it. Right. I didn't want a name for it. No. I didn't want recognition. Mm-hmm. I just knew 4 o'clock, everyone's under the bridge on Miami Beach, and they don't have no water. Right. And they don't have nothing to eat. And I would just go and park my car and feed the homeless. Mm-hmm. And hang with them and play cards, and that was my turning point, that I began to love people. I began to know that everybody is a jewel, that they're just covered up with the shame, and you have to break through with love. And that was my transition.
So how do we get to building furniture and dresses and prom dresses?
When I got out of, in that transition, I got a job after I had my baby, and I worked in an office I was a hairdresser, but my schedule, my probation officer did not like it. I worked Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights. Yeah. And I was hanging out in Miami Beach and South Beach, and there was a lot of drugs. And she said, I'm so sorry, I'm giving you 30 days. You got to move out of South Beach. And I was like, what? I ride my bicycle everywhere. You know, everything is the bomb on the beach. So I moved into, God made it that I was in a restaurant, and I was praying, sitting on this table quietly alone. I only had $15 in my pocket, but I wanted an ice cream because it was 100 degrees. A guy named Jeff walked over, and he found me very attractive. So God uses anything in us. Right. Because he found me very attractive, that he came and sat down. Of course, he came with one intention, but God twisted it around. He sat by me and started talking to me and brought me mashed potatoes with chives, and we started talking. And I told him I need a new job. I don't know where to begin. I've been doing this forever. And he told me about somewhere that was hiring property management. I went, and the job was no interview. I got the job. Yeah. And I just went there, and she said, okay, here's the keys to the building. Go manage this building, 300 apartments. And we have a team and whatever you need. And I unraveled. Every day I woke up depressed, sad, crying myself. But I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning, opened them property doors, and God began using me. Tenants would come in, they couldn't pay their rent. I would run to my backpack and get my resource center letter, and I would go. Resource center letter, and I would go and say, oh, look, this is the resource center. This will help you pay the rent. This will help you pay the food. Mm-hmm. And the transition began that I didn't know nothing, but what I did know is I knew Jesus, and I began saying, God, I need to build this. How do I build this? And girl, I started like that. I painted an office. I did this, I did that. And in all of that, I transitioned into construction. I became a construction worker because that gave me a schedule to be home. And within the construction, I began gaining skills and using tools. And it was a journey from a hairdresser. This is how God showed me.
Right.
It started here. I helped women get beautiful here.
Right.
I helped them build with their hands. I helped them build with their heart. Then I began a woman that started doing clothes. So I helped them get dressed. I helped them wear shoes. I taught them how to do their nails, their hair, how to transform themselves.
Right.
All with the word of God, because it was the word of God. Beauty for ashes. You know what I mean? Ashes for beauty. And, you know, and backwards, whatever, beauty for ashes. And that's how all of that transitioned.
So now we do gowns.
Oh, yes.
So
we empower women. Borrow My Gown just began out of trying to help women with girls with prom, and it transitioned into prom, to Rabbit Fest, to weddings, and it just began in my living room. Posted looking for dresses for young ladies to borrow, and I began with the word young ladies, and then God transitioned me. He said ladies of all ages. And he said, make some Cinderellas for a night. Not my Cinderella, but Cinderella, the fairy tale-ish kind of feeling. Right. And which is funny, because when you look at the cartoon, she's going like this. I say she's praising Jesus. I don't care what anybody says. And sue me, Disney. I believe she's praising Jesus. Long story short.
Disney be okay.
Yeah. And I began doing it, and little by little, women kept on donating and donating and donating. And one of my major stories is that a week when I started this, within the first week, I had a lady contact me through Messenger that she wanted to donate dresses, that someone told her about Borrow My Gown. I gave her my address because that's what I do. And she came to my house, and when I opened the door, she was very intoxicated. You could smell the alcohol exuded from her, like if you lit a match, she was going to blow up. So immediately my persona, there is, the judgmental, critical behavior, thought about, oh, goodness, But then I immediately, within a millimeter of a blink of an eye, I heard God say, I sent her here. So I asked her, hey, do you want to come in? She walked in. She had 3 dresses in her hand. She sat on my sofa. I said, do you want some coffee? And she said, yeah. And she donated me the 3 dresses that belonged to her daughter that had got killed by a drunk driver. That was my first experience with direct love when it came to a donor. Yeah. And we sat down, and she donated this dress, and I touched her, and we started to pray. And today we're friends. We are actual friends.
Now I want to know and I want to thank you for sharing your story. Not to cut you off, but we're out of time.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's all right. But if a female, I'll put it that way, needed to borrow a gown, how would they reach you?
You can find me on Facebook under Borrow My Gown, Instagram Borrow My Gown. My Gmail is just Borrow My Gown the way it is written. I have gone a step further, whereas I allow people to peek into my world. So if you go to Borrow My Gown, you can connect. If you Google Borrow My Gown, you will find all ways of contacting. We go a step above, whereas that either I send somebody or I'll meet you. I've met people at the Waffle Cone. I've met them at the Chuck E. Cheese. Like, some people are uncomfortable with personal interaction. Yes. So I've had people go, can I meet you at the Chuck E. Cheese? I met them at the back of the truck and they gave me the car. I've had people leave me a bag. Can I leave you a bag at the community center? I've gone to the community center where they just left a bag. Okay. So there are many ways to borrow gowns for us. We ask for your state ID and proof of your residence due to the fact that we've had people never return our dresses. Right. But if someone comes through you that you have sent them and you personally know them and their situation, you have people that don't have bills under their name. You have people that are under. We will still help them. We don't care what gender you are, what nationality, how old you are, where you come from. We just want to help you become Cinderella for a night. Just know that in the whole process, the whole intention is actually to help you be transformed, go from here to here, and kind of connect you to new people in your life, because God is good. I'm connected to women like you. They show me so much love.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on for Women's Month, because all we need to do is what we do now is to empower other women. Yes. And we need to always remember that's one job we have, and we got that from birth. We're women. We were born this way, and our job is to empower other women, because if we don't, then it becomes our fault of whatever that happens afterwards. So we need to always remember women empower other women. And as long as we remember to do that.
Woman empower other women. I'm stealing that. I'm stealing it.
As long as we remember to do that, we will be fine. But it's the point of, and some of us, we need to get off that horse and get on the pony.
Yes, yes.
And learn, and learn that horse you on, he can also knock you off.
Oh, yes.
Because he's strong. So, you got to be strong enough to remember that you can get off that horse. Sometimes you got to get off the horse, go get on that pony to talk to that female, and you should be okay. Because I say, people ask, do you know where you stand? And I'll tell you, I stand wherever I want to because I am woman.
Another one I'm stealing. I stand wherever I want to. I am woman. When you say these things, you know what I envision in my head? I envision me with a sword, a spear, and I'm like, I'm all for it, Phyllis. Let's ride the horse together. Let's get down together.
We can.
Help women emerge with beauty. Support our local art. Support our local radio station. And this wonderful man right here hanging out with a bunch of ladies. So she say hi.
Hello.
Okay, and I want to thank everyone for listening to Kids Community Connections at My Kids 1031. I hope you have a fabulous day, but I also need you to remember, you cannot have a positive life with a negative mindset. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Bye now.